and do a quick run through of it just to get it on record. This was my first game in 6 years or so that was semi-serious. I fooled around with 1 minute games, once a month or something like that in the intervening years. But after I got sort of burned out on chess, I stopped playing altogether. And this game was kind of my reintroduction to it, and I won the game, which was great. But I unfortunately got into time trouble, and so did my opponent. We were down. I think I had just over a minute on the clock when the game ended, and he had probably less than 30 seconds, maybe even less than 20. It's hard to really remember. It's been a while since I played this game, but we were in some serious time crunch, so we had stopped recording the moves. Therefore, I don't have a record of the end of this game. So, this game will end in the middle, and I can just assure you that I did win the rest of the game, and I can kind of summarize what happened. But like I said, it's getting close to a year now. It's been at least 7 months, maybe 8 months since this game was played. I believe it was last July. So you can do the math if you would like. So anyway, we went through a French defense, which I was always comfortable with playing before, but I really had no idea what I was doing in this game. I just decided I would play as slow as I needed to not hang any pieces or not lose to any direct tactics. And I found myself a little bit more comfortable than I thought I would be, but I was still pretty uncomfortable and made countless positional kind of mistakes that I spent most of the game trying to recover from. So my opponent was rated 1650 or so. It was in the mid 1600s somewhere. I don't think it was high 1600s, but it was somewhere around 1630 at the lowest. So, pretty decent and probably better than what I would expect to be rated. So, a little, not really necessarily intimidated, but I was definitely going to be careful. So I started off in my opening here with something that I already would do differently if I were playing today, and that is this knight c6 response to bishop b5. I think instead what I should do is this, and it's just to get rid of this problem bishop, because in the French defense a light squared bishop is always a problem, instead of doing what I did better. But like I said, I was just trying not to hang pieces, basically, so I'm making an excuse here for some positional mistakes that I made, but, whatever, it is what it is. So, playing through this, I know queen b6 is a standard in the French defense, and this is already looking a little like the French defense. Maybe he's moved his bishop twice, so I might actually be a move ahead here. Moving through here, I block my dark square bishop in, which gives him a chance to take on c5. However, it is defended by my queen. So I take back with my queen. I thought already, wow, that's a little bit weird. This is definitely not a normal French now. But there have already been several deviations from it, so I wasn't off base in thinking that in the first place. But this allows him to develop his dark square bishop with some tempo, and I slide out here to a5, thinking that I'm fairly safe. If he comes up with this queen b3 move. Now, it didn't take me too long to figure out the principal threat, which is trapping my queen. I did notice it, so I knew that I had to come up with some way to stop bishop b6. He's going to get his bishop in there in sort of a cozy little spot. But what it does is it cuts off all the squares that my queen can move to. So if I allow queen b6, my queen is going to be trapped. So, I mean, just as an example, say I made this move. So he goes queen b6, and I am in trouble. So I'm not really sure what we could do about it in order to get the most material, but needless to say, it's important to stop queen b6. So I came up with a couple of options, and I thought the number one option was b5. And it cuts off the queen's support of b6, so now queen b6 just loses the bishop. So I thought that was a pretty good plan. He decides he's going to try to stick his bishop on d6, which is probably pretty good. However, when I move my e7 knight away, then I can snap it off there, and he is in real danger of losing this pawn, which he's probably in danger of losing anyway. So yeah, it seems a little premature for me. I have a moment of blindness here, which I didn't have very many in the game that was just complete blindness, but this one seemed to be complete blindness. I have no idea why I allowed him to do that with tempo by moving here. I really don't remember why in the world I was thinking queen c7 was anything remotely good. But I wasted a move here, basically. Let him get there with tempo, and then uh, he gets to develop a knight now, and I do what I was intending to do, which is knight g6. So I'm putting a little bit of pressure here on the e5 pawn. So basically, his best move here is to snap off the dark square bishop, which is going to be my good bishop. So he's traded his bad bishop, theoretically bad bishop, for my good bishop, which is a good trade for him, and what I should have done earlier in the game. So, oh, by the way, this little rook f8 move instead of king takes f8, I don't know if it's a big deal, but later on when I decide I want to capture the e5 pawn, which I can certainly do, it leaves my h7 pawn hanging from his light square bishop. So, just something to take note of, that maybe I had recaptured with the wrong piece. Now, whenever I moved my queen to b6, it was kind of the second straight move in which I had put my queen on a bad square. I put it on a bad square here because it pins my pawn. So a4 was always going to be a good move for him because it's attacking the pinned pawn. And then, of course, my rook back here is also pinned. So I definitely have to do something about that problem. So here's what I found. I thought I would maybe try to get in b4 and a5. However, that gives him a nice little square for his light square bishop. So that's kind of another positional mistake. I've made a couple here. And honestly, I don't think he's doing a fantastic job of capitalizing, but you do see kind of throughout this game, one of the themes is that he does get his minor pieces to some outpost squares repeatedly. They never seem to do much there. It would seem like maybe his entire goal was to get them there, and then he didn't know what to do once he did. It just seemed like I tried to kind of play actively once he did, and kind of counter positioned my pieces in a way that sort of worked out to be effective. So we'll just kind of show the way the next few moves went. I'm thinking about trying to connect my rooks here somehow, maybe playing king d7 or king e7 to get the rooks connected, get maybe the rook to c8. Now he is looking at maybe either snapping off this knight, or if my knight moves, the h7 pawn could hang. We'll look at a variation of that here in just a second. But I was definitely worried initially playing this move because of this h7 pawn. So say he does something like this, and obviously the rook can be trapped here, but I was initially, I'm not sure I saw far enough ahead to see that my knight would be guarding g6, so he couldn't do this very easily. Further, let's see, what's the other thing I was going to say? Oh, further, he can't sort of rescue the bishop by getting the queen over to the h-file easily, because this square is guarded by the knight, and this square is, all these squares are guarded, so there's no easy avenue for the queen to get there. It might be something like this. Obviously there's not, though, because the g5 square is guarded as well. So there's no easy way for the the queen to get over there. Maybe the knight is. You might think maybe you can get two moves to get f3 and then g5, but this square is then guarded by the knight. So here we have this variation. Oh, sorry. So I have to get over here, and then he's going to do this, this, and this. So this is a little ugly for me, but I think it's probably okay. So I'm going to have to go like here, here. So we, maybe have something like this. And, I don't know how it would continue. We might have this. It's looking ugly, so I'm not real comfortable with this variation. But the way the game actually went was this. And see, you're going to see him getting his knight to an outpost once again. And now I'm going to have to really work to get my rooks active. Obviously, I can't get my rook directly to here. So what I'm trying to do now, let's see if I can even remember. What I'm trying to do now, let's just look ahead here. Let's see, why wouldn't you take with the knight here? I guess maybe it could allow me to get some pawns rolling in the center here. Okay, so just going to try to move forward. I'm definitely just trying to take the open file here. I definitely remember that. I had to be really careful of forks and all sorts of things there. Now I'm just going to lose that pawn. There was really no good way to defend that pawn. So just activating my rooks. Here's another knight on a nice outpost square. And I kind of get one of my own here. This finally get my bishop outside of the pawn chain, and that helps considerably. So just moving quickly through this. See, now he's got his knight centralized here, but this is not a good spot for it. And the reason it's not a good spot for it is it can be evicted, and there's no real good place for it to move from there. So say I go here, then, you know, really the only thing it can do is come back to knight f3. So, trying to get my rooks into the game. He makes a really strange... I guess this is just preventing back rank tactics, but there weren't any coming, so I guess here maybe there are, but it seemed like maybe h3 instead of g3 would have been better. I think at one point here I accidentally, not accidentally, but now I'm trying to now this is sort of similar to where I was going to evict with f6 when his knight was on e5, except I'm going to undermine his d4 pawn, which would leave the knight hanging. So this is pretty near where I think that's the final move before we got into time trouble. So there was a lot of stuff going on there that I skipped over quite a bit. Here, the Houdini gives a slight advantage to white. It says 0.71 advantage towards white. But I can tell you that one of the things he tried to do once he started getting into time trouble, you could tell he was frustrated, and just by the way he made the move, was he eventually sacked the exchange on b5, and I recaptured with a5, and then he was trying to promote the pawn, but he lost the pawn, basically. Eventually, my g and h pawns went up this side of the board, and I promoted one of them, and in the promotion, he either resigned. I didn't even look back at the board, but all I was worried about was finding the queen quickly, because it wasn't right beside the board. I think I had to dig through a bag or something like that, and then it turned out that the queen that was captured during the game was beside the board, but I was looking for the extra queen. I wasn't even thinking about that. It was time trouble, so I wasted some time there. I didn't even look back at the board after I got my queen onto the square and hit the clock, and I looked up and he had his hand stretched out to me. Didn't even look back at the board to see if I had checkmated him, but somebody told me later that it was actually checkmate at the time, so I think I checkmated the guy and didn't even realize it in my first game. Either way, he resigned, and it was clear that I was winning for the last 5 or 6 moves of the game. Actually, I thought it was clear from the time he sacked the exchange over here. I thought I was in good shape. So, anyway, there's a lot going on in this game that I didn't really talk about, but I did want to get this game on the record before I forgot too much about it, and as you can see, I did forget quite a bit already. So anyway, if you have any comments or questions, just let me know. It was fun. Thanks, guys.